Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. If you are new to the channel, you may have been led to believe that I only play Blackstone Fortress, but nothing could be further from the truth. I play a lot of different games, and one of the games that I play is Dungeons & Dragons. However, I am relatively new to that gaming system. I only tried it for the first time last year. I've been playing it with a group of friends, and it turns out we are having a blast. But I have been muddling through without a lot of the bits and pieces that you might have if you're playing Dungeons & Dragons. I don't have any monster manuals, I don't have the full rulebook or anything. I'm using stuff that came in the starter set. However, that is starting to change, and it is starting to change with the acquisition of this particular product. It is the Dungeon Master's screen. This was actually purchased for me by one of my party. They purchased it as a Christmas gift for me. I didn't get him anything. I guess I probably owe him advantage on a couple of dice rolls for that. Maybe an inspiration point. Yeah, inspiration point would be good because he's actually put his party at a slight disadvantage because now they can't see some of the stuff that I'm doing that they have previously been able to see. One of the things that they could always see was when I was rolling for hit points for monsters, and the player who actually purchased this screen for me did have a tendency to lean across the table. He was very, very aware of the fact that he did it, and would usually admit that he had done it, but he found it impossible to resist a quick glance at my notes to see what kind of hit points they were dealing with. Rolling for hit points for monsters is something that I do quite a lot. If we get a big group of low-level monsters, I just take the averages from the monster descriptions. But if I've got like a big character, a boss, something like an ogre, a big single enemy, or just a couple of mid-level enemies that my players think they know what they're dealing with, I will randomize the hit points and things like that, just because otherwise they feel like they kind of know what they're doing. They've grokked the situation, and I like to try and keep them on the back foot a little bit and say, oh well, hold on, you thought they had this many hit points, this one's got a few more. So that's a good thing to have the screen to hide that kind of information. But anyway, I am prattling, and I need to get to the point, because the point is I'm going to take a quick look at this product on camera, talk about what I like about it. So it comes shrink wrapped with this protective sleeve over the top. The protective sleeve shows the artwork that is actually spread across the full screen. Is this a Chardellon? I don't know, but whoever it is, this poor chap here, he's in a bad way. Bad things are going to happen to him. That can't be a good situation to be in. It says down here, master the game with this indispensable tool for the world's greatest role-playing game. So that's your sleeve. Inside we have this lovely glossy screen, and it folds out to quite a size. We have the inside. Let's see if I can do a panning shot. Na 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 na. Don't copy strike me. Do 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 do. So there you go. It's a pretty long board, and like I say, that's the artwork from the sleeve, just in a beautiful panoramic view. It's not very high. I was expecting it to be a little bit taller. I still think a lot of people will be able to peer over the top of that to a certain degree. But hey-de-ho. This is a very awkward thing to try and film. The cool thing is, on the inside, it's not just blank. We have some other stuff. We have some useful reference material. They've tried to take the most useful bits and bobs of information you're likely to need at a quick glance to save you flicking through the rulebook. And I think on the whole, they've picked pretty good stuff to be on the back. It's usually stuff that's related to when you're in those combat situations and you want to keep the pace of a fight going. I tend to find that when we're in the more role-playing conversations with NPCs type situations, those tend to flow quite nicely. You know, we get into character, we do all the talking and stuff. I don't tend to have to flick around in the adventure books too much. I'm pretty good at remembering the important things that characters are supposed to say and that sort of stuff, so there's very minimal downtime in those sections. However, when we get into a combat situation, that's when it's that case of, oh, hold on a minute, I need to do some poison damage, let me just double check, and that sort of thing will crop up a little bit more in fights, and it tends to make things run a little bit longer because we are still relatively new to this. So this is a lot of what's on the back. We have point of origin for, this is stuff like, cone of fire, lines, cubes, spheres, and cylinders. So that's, I don't know how useful that is, but it's quite nice. There's like a little gnome telling you all about it. And then we have the actions in combat. This is very useful because I tend to find that as you play, certain things will get forgotten. Dodge is something I think that gets forgotten quite a bit. That you can use an action to get that advantage when people are attacking you. Also, disengage is something that we tend to remember that when you move away from someone, they get their attacks of opportunity. But I tend to forget that disengage is a thing. So it's quite nice to have all of the different actions here. So you've got attacking, casting a spell, dashing, disengaging, dodging, helping, hiding, readying, searching, using a magic item, using an object, and using a special ability. And furthermore, we have down here a comprehensive list of the things you can do on your turn. It's move up to your speed, take one action, communicate with speech, gestures, or both. Mainly gestures with my guys. Interact with one object or feature of the environment as you move or take your action. To interact with a second object, use the use an object action. So that's pretty useful. That's a nice little reminder. I guess once you're really into the game, this sort of thing becomes less useful. But for me in particular, that's the kind of thing that it's nice to have in front of you. We then have a few other things like long jump, high jump, suffocating, and concentration. Suffocation is an odd thing to have in there, I guess, but the jumping stuff is useful. My party once forgot that you could jump when they were faced with a pit trap. They spent a long time figuring out how they could create some kind of pulley system to pull themselves along above it. They must have thought they were incredibly inactive, unhealthy, slow-moving adventurers who couldn't leap. But so that's nice to have those there. Concentration is something else that, particularly you get a lot of spellcasters in the game. Concentration is something that I've had to look up a couple of times exactly how that works and what will break your concentration. So that's nice to have. And then over here we've got some cool stuff. We've got some conditions with some cool artwork. This condition is petrified, about to be eaten by a dragon. So yeah, we've got all your basic conditions: blinded, charmed, deafened, frightened, grappled, incapacitated, invisible, paralyzed, eaten by ghoul, petrified, and poisoned. So there we go, there's that. Oh, look, there's more. Prone, restrained, stunned, unconscious, and then there's the exhaustion stuff down at the bottom there. That's not exhausted, that's straight up splatted. Very useful to have all those conditions. Again, when you're in a combat situation and you're fighting monsters that you may not have faced before, they're going to apply conditions to you. Always useful to have that sort of stuff immediately available, especially sometimes things don't come up for a long time. I think in our campaign so far we've only met one creature that can poison, and I think it was spiders, giant spiders, and then giant spiders also had the they could entangle you with the webs. So that was something that we hadn't met before, we hadn't confronted that before. So things like this to have immediately in front of you while you're playing is very useful. And then we have some tables for difficulty levels for stuff, damage by level and severity, hit points for objects. Well, that's quite interesting. We don't tend to smash a lot of stuff in our games. In fact, my players very rarely do the thing where they use objects in their environment for different reasons. They very rarely... they did a cool thing once where they used a stone and they lit the stone with a magic spell to make a point of light that they could see by without having to light torches and things like that. But they don't tend to do things like throwing stones to distract guards or smashing bottles or, you know, getting into a bar fight and using a bottle to hurt someone. They don't really do a lot of breaking open doors and windows. They're relatively civilized, apart from they set fire to everything. But, you know, as civilized as you can be in the ruined remains of gutted buildings that you set fire to after murdering the occupants. You know, moderately civilized. What else we got? We've got object armor classes, and then we've got skills and associated abilities. That's useful. So you see here, like, your skill is acrobatics, so the ability is dexterity. Animal handling is wisdom. That's very useful, because there's always that situation. Our very first game, the heroes found some wolves that were penned up, and it's like, well, this is animal handling, which ability do we use? Because we were all incredibly new to the game at that point. So having that sort of stuff there is useful too. Cute pictures of dice. Oh look, they're fighting over the dice and they're using the dice to hide behind while they're fighting. That's cute, isn't it? And then over here we have travel pace. This is something that is useful to have because adventures often involve moving between locations across the open world, the overworld, if you will. So you've got your fast, normal, and slow travel pace and the effects it has on your journey. Other services that are available, like coach cabs and getting hirelings, messengers, ships, that sort of thing. Obscured areas, so dim light areas and dark areas, caves. That's always useful to have. Encounter distances and visibility outdoors. Look at that, you can see 2 miles on a clear day, which is about how far Legolas shot his arrow in the extended cut of the 2 towers. And then we have cover. So rules for cover, that's useful as well. I tend to sort of forget about cover sometimes in the heat of battle, but things like other people getting in the way of your arrows will actually apply cover to your target. Light sources, candles, lamps, lanterns, torches, or pebbles that you've illuminated by magic if you're my weird party of heroes. Love you guys, but you're odd. And then we have something which is very useful for my party because art tends to imitate life when we play, and our team do spend a lot of time sitting in taverns. So all of the general costs for ale and food and staying at inns, eating meals, all of that, wine by the pitcher. So that's useful. That will probably get used more than anything else in our games because I am always having to look up how much stuff costs at taverns because they do spend a lot of time drinking, playing cards, and chatting to the natives. So there we go. That is it. That's the whole thing. That's a pretty neat little collection of rules that you're likely to need on a regular basis. I'm trying to think off the top of my head whether there's things that I would rather have had there, but I think it's all of the main things that you might suddenly go, oh, hold on a minute, you guys are traveling to a new area, what sort of speed are you going to travel at? So yeah, I think off the top of my head that seems like a decent set of rules to have in front of you before your eyes while you are playing. And of course, the main benefit of this screen anyway is to hide your nefarious machinations. But I guess that's everything I've got to say. I've spoken far too long about a piece of card. So that is it from me for now. Thank you very much for watching. If you have liked this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you have really liked this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I will see you all again very soon. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.